Jones.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm not used to being called so early in the batting order, but I'm very grateful nonetheless. Madam Deputy Speaker, I made my maiden speech on a small but mighty bill, and this is another of the same. I very much welcome the contents of this bill. These small but meaningful changes will make a real difference to many of my constituents. There are two elements of the bill on which I would like to focus. The first centres around what this bill would do for free ports. I was elected in 2019 on a manifesto which promised to create up to 10 free ports around the UK. Free ports are a cornerstone of the government's levelling up agenda, which recognises that talent is spread evenly across the country, but opportunity is not. And as someone who represents an often forgotten part of the world, I am determined to see that agenda through. We know that a free port is an area within a country's geographic border but outside its customs area, but there is no one model of a free port, and that is their strength. They can be implemented in a number of ways. Certainly will.
Does Honourable Lady share my interest and demand that we have a free port in Northern Ireland as well? I understand that this legislation doesn't necessarily help that happen, but does she support us and our calls to have a free port in Northern Ireland?
Well, as a member of the Northern Ireland Affairs Select Committee, I certainly do welcome that suggestion. I know I was greatly reassured by the Minister's reference to that in his opening speech, and I hope that further details will come forward as soon as possible. But they can be implemented in a number of different ways. For example, manufacturing businesses operating in a free port can benefit from tariff inversion when tariffs on a finished product are lower than those on its component parts. And further tax and non-tax incentives, such as lower rates for corporation or even employment tax, as we're discussing this afternoon, as well as simplified customs process, can also be offered. Although a free port is a fairly new buzzword in our political discourse, it's important to remember that these are not new ideas. The UK used to operate a number of free ports. In fact, prior to the creation of the Welsh Assembly, now the Senedd, a free port even operated in Cardiff. Back in 2016, the up-and-coming member for Richmond argued that free ports could turbocharge the UK's post-Brexit economy. Free of the customs union and state aid rules, he argued that tens of thousands of jobs could be created with a successful free ports programme. He was right then, and he is right now. In 2018, the member for Middlesbrough and South East Cleveland highlighted in a Westminster Hall debate just how positive a free port in the UK could be. He cited the example of the Jebel Ali free zone in the United Arab Emirates and how it has transformed Dubai. It now hosts 7,000 global companies, employs 145,000 people, and accounts for around 40% of the UAE's total direct foreign investment. This is a dramatic example, but there is no reason to believe that free ports in the UK cannot be just as successful as those around the world, perhaps even more so given our strong links with the United States, with Europe and the Commonwealth. And so I warmly welcome Clause 1 of this bill, which introduces a new zero rate of national insurance contribution for employers taking on employees in a free port. The government has already outlined the 10 areas of the UK where free ports will be created. 8 sites in England have been successful, and the government has committed to creating one in Wales. Now, I understand the First Minister of Wales has expressed reservations and an unwillingness to work with the UK government on a Welsh free port. So can I urge the Minister, who is my close neighbour and friend across the border, who knows Wales extremely well, to press full steam ahead to work with his colleague, the Secretary of State for Wales, in setting up a Welsh free port. A rising tide lifts all boats, to continue the maritime theme, and a free port in Wales will create jobs and growth in all parts of Wales. And this is especially important for me in mid-Wales because throughout the recent Senedd election, constituents told me that all they want is for their kids to have a future in Brecon and Radnorshire. Not to leave at 18 to go to university, only to come back 30 years later when they can afford to buy a home, but to have good jobs when they leave education. This is not part of the Welsh Government's current plan for mid-Wales. We are forgotten about, but I am determined that we will not be forgotten about. My constituents are determined that we will not be ignored and will not stand still. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, the other clause that I wanted to focus on is Clause 6, which makes a small but important change for our military community, where employers who hire an armed forces veteran immediately after they leave the forces will be able to claim a new zero-rate national insurance contribution. Employers will be able to claim the relief from April 22, and transitional arrangements will allow a retrospective claim for the 21-22 tax year. Now, this is extremely close to my heart, and I declare an interest in that my partner is a serving member of the Armed Forces. Brecon is a proud garrison town, and like the Minister, we have a number of military sites and personnel that we are very proud of. The barracks, the infantry battle school, Stennybridge training area are important military assets, and I am fiercely proud of them. But while my campaign to save Brecon Barracks from closure is a persistent thorn in the Ministry of Defence's side, our support for veterans must go beyond maintaining high-quality sites and shiny silverware in the mess. We must look at a suite of policy instruments and make swift but sweeping changes to improve things for veterans once they leave active service. The changes outlined in this bill could save an employer who employs a veteran up to £5,500. This makes a veteran even more attractive to an employer, and the Minister should be commended for pursuing this, especially as we remember that our veterans are getting younger. The House of Commons Library estimates that the percentage of veterans of working age is projected to increase from 37% at the moment up to 44% in 2028. What I'm particularly pleased about in this bill is that it covers veterans right across the United Kingdom equally. All four nations need to be comprehensive in the way we look after our veterans. Wales is currently the only part of the United Kingdom not to have a dedicated Veterans Commissioner, someone on the side of veterans who can challenge local authorities and health boards to ensure that veterans can access the services they need. Earlier this year, I called on the UK Government to address this imbalance and create a Veterans Commissioner for Wales. And I'm extremely grateful to both the Secretary of State for Wales and the former Minister for Veterans Affairs for the work which led to the announcement on St David's Day that they were actively considering creating this post. But this needs to be done in cooperation with the Welsh Government so that the post holder has oversight to challenge Welsh health and education services. So can I take this opportunity to urge both sides to come together and create this role so that Welsh veterans can benefit from the protections that their colleagues in England have. But I am grateful for the opportunity to speak on this small but important bill and wish it swift passage through the House. Thank you.